Hello, friends. It's me. It's time once again for another story. I'm very concerned about this one, and we'll get to that. This is from Reddit user Plus Razzmatazz. I really like your name. This is 80 plus ex-polygamous hits on someone he, quote, thinks is a teenager. Oh, excuse me. Just wants her to, quote, go to church. First off, I'm pretty sure this is fine, but if this is NSFW, let me know and I'll figure out how to fix it. That's never really been a reason to stop on this channel, has it, kids? Okay, so I'm not really sure what I should call this, or what I should call this guy. Let me know what you think his title should be. Neckbeard, nice guy, others, I don't know. Perhaps he's a sociopath or a narcissist? I actually joined Reddit just because, as time has worn on, I felt I needed to share this story. Moonhorse, your kindness and anger on behalf of the injured in these accounts is what made me share this with you. Well, I'm happy that I could give you a platform upon which to share things. You're my favorite person to listen to or to read stories of neckbeards and creeps because of your concern and joy for your hopefully ever-growing herd. Well, that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard, so thank you very much. Actually, listening to one of your stories reminded me of this. No clue why, it's not related. It's a long story. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with long stories. I suppose I need to say something about myself. I'm in my early 30s. I do live at home because until 2 years ago I helped take care of my dad who had Parkinson's, and I'm a diabetic that has some lows that are too low for my meter to read from time to time. It usually occurs when I sleep. I'm trying to outlive my mother because she deserves all the happiness delivered to her by joyous fairies and none of the sad mean beans. I'm tallish and thin and apparently have a baby face as I'm still being confused for a teenager, even by people who work with teenagers every day, as I was a month or so before this happened. I guess I look the age I often feel? I don't know. I'm gonna call this guy Mr. Ick because, well, you'll see. He is taller than me by like a head or more. In his 80s, or maybe even his 90s, he has thick white hair, bushes for brows, and while thinnish, he's got a gut. He has aged really well, if you like people that old. He's not really smelly, and I never really had contact with him after this, so I don't know if he flipped the switch on the nice guy thing or what, but he is manipulative, in a subtle way. And while I've never found him charming, I guess he could be? Also, he used to be part of a polygamist community nearby. Apparently, all of his other wives left him for other men in the community, and then he left the community, or was kicked out, I don't really know. He left with someone I was friends with, and their kids. I don't know if he had children he left behind or not. I've worked for Mr. Ick before, data entry of his earnings and spendings, and every year or two or three for a few weeks. He owned a small family business that he worked with his two mentally handicapped sons. Great guys, but very easily manipulated by their father, as I would find out later. My mother and I were friends with his wife, and they thought of me when thinking of who might trade their time for a brief stint of getting paid. It worked out well enough, although I got bad vibes from Mr. Ick the whole time. As a person with social anxiety, I just kind of wrote it off. Well, a few years ago, Mr. Ick's wonderful wife died. She had Parkinson's disease. My father also died approximately a year and a half before the meat of this story. Don't be sorry, he wasn't nice to people beneath him like his family. Ow. Back to this guy, though. He had been caught by some scammers that get you to send them money and was warned by the post office workers and the police that he was being taken, but somehow the scammers convinced him that the government or something just didn't want him to have the money they promised in return for all the money he was sending them. Eventually, he borrowed money from his friends and neighbors to send to these people and even started sending out more of these scams to random people in the hopes that they would send him their money. He had a deal with these people who had scammed him that he would get to keep some of the money he scammed from others and send the rest to them. Yeah, he got caught because of an old woman's daughter checking on her and calling the police about it. Apparently, he'd gotten quite a lot of money from this little old lady in another state. Classy. As Mr. Ick is in his 80s, or perhaps 90s, he wasn't really arrested. We heard about this in our small town, because of course we did. But he seemed to have straightened up, so when he called me some months ago to ask if I could do some data entry, I talked to my mom about it, and she agreed, but sent me with her cell phone and told me to call if something went south. Though he picked me up, as I don't drive, it's a personal choice, I never learned. And everything seemed normal. I got in his van, and the entire way to his house, he kept talking about massages and how much he missed giving them since his wife died. I was very uncomfortable. I really miss massaging the female form, is a paraphrase of what he kept bringing up. That's really fucking creepy. We're almost to his house when I tried mentioning that my brother's wife is a masseuse. That was immediately met with, "Wasn't she giving you a massage?" Looking back on this now, please let me not be a part of the spank bank. This is the point that my brain said that this guy is trying to get you to let him massage you. Yeah, I blame diabetic brain. No, I don't really like being touched. Not quite true, but I discovered at a young age that I don't care to receive massages. I quickly jumped in with liking to give or receive massages was fine, but I stated that I don't really like it, so, what can I say? My anxiety kicked in again. He kept up the topic still until he locked the door a couple of minutes later. Mr. Ick had done a lot of talking about massages for like 5 minutes. The hours that I was there and the ride back home were fine, nothing really happened. I did notice a paper taped underneath his computer monitor, but I paid no attention to it at all that day. I mentioned in passing the strange conversation topic to my mom when I arrived home, but I guess failed to tell her how insistent he was about talking about massages and how he missed giving them to the female. She told me later that she wouldn't have let me go back if she knew how creepy he was. The next day I came over that evening for a few more hours of work, and the ride and everything was fine. He checked a messaging site on his email before setting me up to work. He was a little upset over the not hearing back from someone. I really thought nothing of it. I just went back to work. As I worked, I did find something that I had to question him about. He mentioned being scammed, but not believing it was truly a scam. One of those send us money and we'll send you more deals. It wasn't until my final day working for him that I paid attention to the paper taped beneath the screen, because of something on his computer that I accidentally saw. I sing while I work, so I bring up YouTube on his computer. His house is in a cell phone blind spot. One of the days while I was there, I even showed him how to look up songs he wanted to hear on YouTube, because he asked. Well, one of the times I go to choose a new song, I click on Google Chrome, and he had left that minimized instead of Firefox that I was using. And up comes a site that had ads for stuff like penis enlargement with an actual picture of a growing wang, and something else sexual I can't really remember anymore. I'm not sure if all the women in the main body of the page were people he had contacted on this site, or if they were just women he was looking at. If I had to guess ages, I'd say most were in their late 20s, early 30s, but I clicked off of it pretty quick and decided to pretend that I just didn't see that, and I'd vent to my mom later when I got home. When I had a break, he was looking for more things that needed my entry, and not uncommon. I finally looked at the paper. It had a few things my innocent little mind didn't know, but based on what I had seen and the words I did recognize, I guessed what these sites were listed for. I wrote the site names down on my bookmark, and I had a bookmark with me for occasions when he was getting more things that needed entering. I was going to look up the words I didn't know when I got home. I don't remember the names of the sites anymore, but stuff like Easy Grannies. And the one I looked up and went no further had something to do with MILFs. Oh, lordy. There were 6 or 7 sites on that list. Fortunately, that day I entered the last of his data. I was surprised, but thankful that there was so little. Usually data entry takes weeks of both days and evenings. I'd done all he had in about 3 evenings. I talked to my mom about what I found and wondered if she knew what this... if she knew what a MILF was. Oh dear. We looked it up and I showed her the list and told her the first 2 or 3 sites were crossed out, and she brought up that first car ride again in relation to this new information because now it made her really uncomfortable. And I explained more completely that car ride. She said something about him trying to see my reaction to the idea, and leaving that site was probably trying to groom me into this idea. I don't know what he expected, leaving a site with pictures like that up. What, I'd become all needy and want to get with him? No, I'm asexual as a flower, and I ain't handsome or rich, and I got good enough personality to top that, especially with the creep that I kept getting vibes off of. If you think this ends here, you're wrong. Mom said that we should call his daughter and let her know, but then thought that she had enough on her plate without trying to protect her mentally handicapped brothers from the father. But after a day or so, she said that the feeling that she needed to let the daughter know kept coming back. So she called her, and we had a long talk on the porch about her father, and I gave her the list with a warning about what she'd find if she looked him up. She said she already knew he was into something like that because he had left a pornographic site up when her preteen son had gone over to help him with things around the house. He had also been getting home help nurses, but called them and told them not to come anymore if they wouldn't send young women. They refused to send women anymore, and he kept propositioning them anyway. Ugh. He had also bullied those aforementioned brothers of hers into allowing access to their money. If I recall correctly, he stole somewhere around $7,000 from one and $6,000 from another. More than either had and now can't pay back. They had to move into assisted living homes to get away from his abuse, and one of them had to quit the job he loved at the thrift store because he kept coming to badger him at work. He was, at the time, trying to regain custody of his son so he could have access to their accounts, as he saw their money as his, according to his daughter. She also said that not going to jail for the scam he tried on that lady made him believe that he was untouchable by the law. Finally, she said that I probably wouldn't get paid, which honestly upset me, but I kind of figured that out already. And I didn't want the money, as I didn't want to be paid if I knew it was stolen money. And, yeah. He hasn't had the business for a while, and that he really didn't need me to do input, as it was years ago that he last had it. Well, my mom and I offered to show up to court or even stand if she really needed our support. A few days later, we get a call asking if I'd be willing to talk to the local bishop about what had happened, and when I found out that Mr. Ick was getting the church's youth groups, 12 to 17-year-olds, if I remember correctly, to come help him with work around his house and yard, I didn't want to risk him somehow courting some of these inexperienced teenagers into something that he should go to jail for. I've heard too many stories to chance it. Remember, this man is in his 80s, at the youngest, while not thin or frail looking. The bishop agrees not to send the teens out anymore, and not to reveal that I had anything to do with this. By the time I'm getting scared, and also had heard that his sons had to threaten him when they were younger because he was beating their mother. I don't know what this guy would be willing to do. The bishop has given a list of sites that this man in his congregation is visiting. This religion is very strict about the whole sexual thing, and I think most Christian religions are. I don't know for sure, as this is the only one that I know much about. So sites like these are kind of a no-no. So they do have programs to help people with addictions, including sex addictions, so maybe he'll get into that? I don't know. I'm guessing it all took a bit for the bishop to get a hold of Mr. Ick, because a week or so later, we started getting a lot of phone calls from him. I don't want to talk to him, and neither did my mom. Sometime during this, the police get in contact with us, as he was reported for something or other. He did drop by with a check for me, and of course my 3-year-old niece, that we can't convinced needs to wait to open the door until an adult is present, answered, but nothing happened. I was at the neighbors picking their grapes before the freeze and nearly had a heart attack when I saw him pull in. My mother wasn't home at the time either. Her dad was, though. I tried talking to Mr. Ick's daughter, and she said that he did have some legitimate income, but to cash the check as soon as possible, the money would probably be gone. I didn't cash it, and he kept calling using spoofed numbers when my mom blocked him. Finally, my mom gave in to her curiosity, and he convinced her to bring the check back, and he'd give her cash for my work instead. So she went to do so with another brother, and I stayed home. Got all of $65 in quarters and bills, except for one of the quarters wasn't even American, and the other was so smashed out, it was a nickel or something actually, that he used to cheat a machine. He owns some of those machines you can put quarters into and get like a prize or a gumball or whatever. The best part, he tried to convince her that he was just trying to tell me what a good young woman, 12 to 17-year-old I think, also probably should be renamed as no one in it are adults, leaders in the church has. He never brought up the church's entire time I was there, nor did he mention any other women or teens. Sure, you just want me to go to church. I also think this is what he told the bishop. Also, Mr. Ick, while you may not know my age, I was in my 20s the first time I ever worked for you. You knew I wasn't a teenager. After this, he stopped calling for a while, and then he called for a few days. It's been a few months since then. I have learned once again to trust my gut. Hasn't been wrong yet. Why do I keep doubting you, Gutsy? He's still free and living alone if you're curious. We see him from time to time in his van driving to the post office or some such. Wow. This guy sounds like a fucking creep. Yeah, there are sadly people like that who get away with so much shit that they feel like they're just entitled to everything and they can just do whatever they want. And holy shit, I am sorry you had to put up with that guy. That's pretty fucked up. He sounds like 10 kinds of awful. I don't even really know what to say. Fuck. And the part that he wanted to, like, interact with youth groups and stuff like that makes me the most uncomfortable. Like, just... no. Fuck no. This guy is just creepy beyond fucking creepy. That is just wrong on, like, a million different levels. Oh, damn it. That's fucking horrible. I am so glad that you don't really have to deal with him anymore, and, you know, here's hoping that you never have to deal with him again, because that's fucking awful, dude. Holy shit. Be careful out there, everybody. This is some heinous shit. So, yeah. Holy fuck, man. But, I don't know. I'll see you in the next episode, I guess. I don't really have anything else to add. That's... wow. So, bye.